My friend, some places in this world are a true paradox. You look from a distance and think, wow, that's incredible. I have to see it. Look at that beautiful woman. And that one with the big butt who's dancing. But when you get there, that's when things get interesting. The colors grab your attention. The music, it invites you to dance. People greet you as if you're long-lost friends. But beneath that initial impression, a very different and untold story is constantly unfolding. A story that no one tells you and that completely changes how you see the place. And today, that's the version I'm going to show you. But hey, I'm warning you. After you see it, it'll be impossible to forget. 1. Havana. No one shows you. You know those Havana photos that are everywhere? Colorful cars, music in the streets, smiles on faces, and a sunset worthy of a magazine cover? Indeed, my friend, welcome to Cuba's Instagram perfect version. Now let me present to you the genuine, authentic version. I'm on San Lazaro Street, one of the most important in downtown Havana. At first glance, it still has a certain beauty. Buildings featuring architectural details from the early 20th century, elaborate frames and wooden windows, but one only needs to look up to see the truth. Here, out of every 10 buildings, 8 or even 9 really should have been demolished by now. That's not an exaggeration. It's genuinely dangerous to walk around here. A ceiling slab could collapse on your head at any moment. And when I tell you it's dangerous to walk on this street, I don't mean you might trip over a curb or something. No, I mean it's the danger of wham, a piece of the roof falling on your head while you're buying bread. And what's even more frightening, this is not an isolated incident. This street is just one of countless others in the same condition. In fact, in Havana, walking without looking up is risking your life. This is not a figure of speech. Just recently, a section of roof fell on Reina Street, which is another of the city's very busy avenues. Even so, people still live here. Entire families, kids playing in the middle of the street, and seniors sitting on the sidewalks, all as if everything were perfectly normal. However, if you observe carefully, you'll notice on their faces that blend of resignation and fear, because here, danger doesn't only stem from the street, it descends from above. 2. Living in peril. You might find yourself asking, why do these people keep living here when the building is about to crumble? The answer is simple and quite harsh. Because in Cuba, leaving your home can be more dangerous than staying. If you end up in a government shelter, prepare to wait 15-20 years for new housing. That's if it ever materializes. It's practically a post-death housing plan. And there's one more significant factor: the expense. The average Cuban earns between $10 and $15 a month. Buying an apartment? Impossible. Even with prices plummeting in downtown Havana, you can find a 40-square-meter place for $25,000 or less. But for someone earning that kind of salary, it's like buying a mansion in Paris. That's why when someone sells, it's usually because they're fleeing the country. They sell it with furniture, appliances, even pots and pans. You know that expression, selling a house with everything included? Here, it's like selling your life with the door wide open because the owner never plans to come back. So who stays? It is typically those without family, without resources, and without a passport. They are people who simply have no other place to go. And so, every single day, they live as if they are in a dangerous game. Except in this game, the ceiling could collapse before the next round even starts. 3. Old cars, modern prices. If there's one image everyone associates with Cuba, it's the colorful classic cars, cruising around as if time has stood still since the 50s. And they are right here, looking beautiful and photogenic, and smelling of old gasoline. These almond trees, as Cubans call them, are taxis that connect neighborhoods like El Vedado, the modern part of the city, to Galeano, one of Havana's busiest streets. Are they beautiful? Yes. But they're also expensive for the local reality. A ride costs between 100 and 150 Cuban pesos, which is about 30 to 45 US cents. Doesn't sound like much, right? But consider this. For someone earning just $10 a month, spending nearly half a dollar on a single trip is like burning a $100 bill where I live just to go a few blocks. The government transportation is packed, sluggish, and seldom on schedule. And private transportation charges whatever it pleases. The government tries to control it, but the drivers just say, "My friend, the state doesn't even give me tires." Let alone gasoline. Everything has to be bought in stores that sell in foreign currency, and of course at prices that would make even your Uber driver cry. The result? Arriving on time for work or school is almost an act of luck. And in Cuba, you can't count on luck every day. 4. Eating is a luxury. Imagine waking up early, going to a simple cafe, and ordering a basic breakfast. No salmon, no artisanal bread, no gourmet coffee with a French name. Just the basics: bread, an egg, coffee. Now, envision your bill totaling 2,728 Cuban pesos, equivalent to $8.30. This amount is $2 greater than the monthly minimum wage in Cuba. Yes, you did hear that right. A single breakfast might cost more than a full month's work, and that's not all. What can you take home with that income? Just bread that spoils overnight. You get 5 eggs from the rationing booklet, and they won't even last you 5 days. That's how little you get. And in a lot of households, the children's breakfast consists solely of bread, water, and sugar. The scarcity is so great that buying food has become almost a game of survival. Before you take anything home, you have to taste it to make sure it hasn't gone bad. Can you imagine having to bite into a cupcake just to be sure you're not about to throw money away? Here, that's routine. In the end, eating well in Cuba has become a luxury. And like any luxury, it's not for everyone. Actually, do me a favor. Forward this video to your communist friend with an iPhone who thinks Cuba is a paradise. Send it without any explanation. Of course, he won't believe it, will he? Or he'll just blame the United States, as he always does. And why? Because you're casting pearls before swine. 5. The black market. If you believe that the costly breakfast was the absolute limit, then just wait. Because here in Cuba, what's scary isn't just the price of things, it's the lack of things. Chicken, oil, detergent, pasta, sausages, products you can find on any corner in other countries disappear for weeks here. And when they do show up, they're either in the expensive government stores paid for in foreign currency or on the famous informal market, which is what really keeps this country breathing. This market is where goods arrive, brought by Cubans living abroad using that annual import quota of 120 kilograms per person. And we're not talking about family gifts here, no. It includes home appliances, clothing, footwear, and food, all of which then supply small private businesses that sell at lower prices and with better quality than the state-owned stores. This is the outcome: small private businesses selling their goods more cheaply and of higher quality than any government-run store. But of course, the government observed its success and decided, let's spoil this as well. Now they even intend to impose tariffs in foreign currency on personal imports. Buddy, you don't need to be an economist to know. Everything will get more expensive. Who pays in the end? Always the people. Because in the end, that's how it always is in Cuba. When something starts to go right, it's only a matter of time before it becomes a problem. 6. The government just complicates everything. And as if things weren't already difficult enough, the Cuban government decided to innovate the art of making people's lives hard. Their new plan? To further strangle the private sector. The current plans involve curtailing the private sector and terminating the free importation of food, medical supplies, and essential hygiene products. This being the very same policy that was established following the protests of July 11, 2021. If this truly comes to pass, those who manage to survive by importing goods from overseas to sell domestically will simply cease to do so. If they cut that off, my friend, forget about it. It'll be empty shelves and a bustling black market. But it doesn't stop there. To help the populace, or so the narrative goes, they also came up with this so-called price cap, which is a limit on how much merchants are allowed to charge. In theory, it sounds nice. Let's make everything cheaper for the people. In practice, the owners of the MSMS The small and medium-sized private enterprises hide their products to avoid selling at a loss. And guess where these products reappear? On the black market, even more expensive. So, the very government that professes to be offering assistance is actually the one driving Cubans further and further into this dire situation. 7. The mass exodus. When life becomes a game where it's every man for himself, the Cuban people do what anyone would. They seek the nearest way out. And in recent years, that exodus has seen over 500,000 people leave the island, particularly since President Biden assumed office in the United States. It's almost as if half of Havana decided to pack their bags and leave all at once. But now, even that final door has begun to shut. The renowned humanitarian parole program, which allowed 30,000 individuals, including Cubans, Nicaraguans, Venezuelans, and Haitians, to enter the U.S. monthly, was temporarily suspended. The reason? Widespread and substantial fraud. There were fake addresses, ghost sponsors, and even dead people's names showing up on the paperwork. And of course, like everything else here, this also turned into a business. People were even demanding payment to set up a fictitious sponsor to guarantee their travel. With the program suspended, numerous flights were abruptly canceled. Families who had already packed their bags had no choice but to give up on their dream. And those who still wish to depart are now targeting improbable destinations, such as Trinidad and Tobago, or even Thailand, which has now granted visa-free entry. Because naturally, if the American dream isn't feasible, one resorts to plan C, D, or Z. However, the reality is stark and unforgiving. For those who remain, life does not improve. For those who want to leave, the doors are getting smaller and smaller, and if it continues like this, soon you won't even be able to squeeze through sideways. 8. Survival is an art. In Cuba, surviving isn't just about working, it's a matter of strategy. And most people compete without even realizing it, because living here means learning to navigate food shortages, inflation, and the government, all at the same time. And often, this strategy involves help from those living abroad. A large portion of the population remaining on the island subsists on remittances sent by relatives from abroad. But contrary to what many people think, this money has decreased a lot. With the mass exodus, whole families reunited outside Cuba. And when that happens, there's no longer a need to send money to those who stayed, because almost no one remained. The Cuban peso is worthless. It's almost a souvenir that you keep, but it's good for nothing. At the official exchange rate, it's worth so little it's a joke. In the official market, the exchange rate is disheartening. On the black market, it can be worth 200% more, but dealing there can lead to up to 5 years in prison, according to the state newspaper Granma itself. The irony of it all? The government is well aware that small private businesses must acquire foreign currency on the black market to import their goods. And consequently, on the streets, you can find just about anything. People are selling used clothes, appliance parts, and even items salvaged from the trash. Because here, if someone is willing to pay, anything can become a product. In Cuba, people don't work to simply live. Here, you improvise to survive and hope that tomorrow they don't make up another rule to mess with you. 9. Luxury hotels and ruins. You'd imagine, with so many people living in houses about to collapse, the Cuban government would be investing in public housing or infrastructure reform. Oh, how innocent you are. Here, the priority is different. Luxury hotels, and I'm not exaggerating. Even as whole neighborhoods in Havana crumble, state-owned companies continue to construct luxurious new hotels. And they're not just building them anywhere either. We're talking about projects in Havana, Varadero, Cayo Santa Maria, and Holguin, the country's main tourist destinations. According to the Ministry of Tourism's own data, more than 3,000 new hotel rooms were added in Cuba in 2023 alone, even as the tourist occupancy rate plummeted from 65% in 2018 to less than 50% in 2022. In other words, there are more empty tourist rooms than full plates for Cubans. Meanwhile, 80% of the structures in downtown Havana are in need of urgent structural repair, and at least 800 additional buildings in the capital have been officially condemned, according to the municipal government. But renovate them? No, no. It's more profitable to build a 5-star resort with an ocean view. The contrast is like a movie. On one side, you have foreigners sipping mojitos in an infinity pool in Varadero, enjoying functional Wi-Fi and air conditioning that chills you to the bone. On the other, families are carrying buckets of water because in their neighborhood, the supply only comes twice a week, if it comes at all. And the most cynical detail, tourism agencies never include this part in the itinerary. The official tour shows classic cars, live music, and paradise-like beaches. The part about the ceiling collapsing on your head isn't included in the package. If private guides could show the real Havana, tourists would get the full experience. The pungent smell of sewage combined with fried food, exposed electrical cables, and vibrant facades concealing cracks resembling road maps. It is unsightly, it's dangerous, and it is far more authentic than any postcard. 10. The Cruel Portrait. By day, Galeano Street is pure movement. Shops, small businesses, people coming and going, trying to make ends meet. At night, it turns into a shelter. Homeless individuals are seen sleeping on cardboard covered by plastic bags, trying to shield themselves from the cold and mosquitoes. This site is unfortunately not an isolated incident. Based on the findings of the Cuban Observatory of Human Rights, an NGO, over 70% of Cubans are facing food insecurity, and a large part of the urban population struggles with some level of housing precariousness. In the capital, the housing deficit is already over 200,000 units. The rationing system created in the 60s still exists. But it's not to guarantee food for everyone, it's because there isn't enough food. Bread is counted, eggs are counted, and even so, the distribution fails. In this country, retiring at 65 means you must continue working. This is due to the fact that the average pension is only about 1,500 Cuban pesos, which is equivalent to $4.50 per month. The growing crime rate and the scarcity of resources mean many people live in fear, yet also with a peculiar resignation. It is as if the Cuban people have learned to adapt even to what should not be acceptable. Walking these streets is like an album of contrasts. The smile of someone selling coffee on the sidewalk, the natural beauty of Cuban women, the sound of an old car passing by, all framed by cracked walls and condemned buildings. And it's in this mix of charm and neglect that Cuba carries on, day after day. Not like the postcard paradise, but rather a place where merely to survive is, in itself, an act of resistance. While some people sell the postcard image, real life here is a mix of soap opera and nightmare. The worst part is, even after showing all this, some people will still claim it's a lie. But I'll leave it up to you to decide. Is this place a paradise or just cheap political marketing? Comment below, and to confirm you watched until the very end, type Cuba and then click on the video that's now appearing on your screen, because the next story is something you absolutely need to see to believe. Thanks, and I'll see you around.